Well, they say necessity is the mother of invention, and I mean, we have to give credit to tattoo artists who we probably don't even know. Do you know what I mean? There'll be people out there who either didn't want publicity, never received publicity, who will have discovered or invented little things that have helped our trade. The most precious commodity I feel that we have in life is time. So if you've got something that can save you time, I mean, people will wax lyrical about making their own needles and that. Mate, it's a horrible job.
Yeah.
You might be able to make good needles, but, you know, the smell of flux up your nostrils, the taste
Soldering,
of it.
yeah.
They thought it'd be funny to break in there, get a body, leave it on my doorstep with a sign saying tattoo me, you know, lads being lads. Anyway, tattooist was tattooing these lads, they put it on Snapchat. He's got a kettle on, fucking next thing, 2 geezers gone on there with fucking shooters and had it off of him. Some of our customers, right, they haven't got huge amounts of money, you know, and we try and look after people, as loads of tattoo studios do. But I just think it's really important to just keep your feet on the ground and remain humble in it.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Alex Lloyd and this is the 21st Century Tattoo. Nice, sweet. Lal, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast and thanks for having us down.
No problem.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Cool.
First of all, like last year, I think we said like marked 40 years at this shop. I think you'd maybe just got into the industry like a few years before that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, where do we even begin? Like, I guess what I'd love to know is like how did you first kind of get into tattooing, and where did that kind of obsession start from? And talk, yeah. Okay,
I mean, I've said this on other things, so if anyone else has heard me talking on a podcast, excuse the repeat. But so basically, I grew up with certain members of my family that had been in the Navy and the Army. They had tattoos on them. I always say I had 2 uncles, Peter and Fred. They'd been in the Royal Navy. They both had the old full-rigged galleons tattooed on their arms. As a little kid, I'd see them and the names of the places that they'd been, Hong Kong on them, and I'd think, God, they went to war in a galleon, you know, but really they was on a battleship. But it was just as a kid, your imagination was fired by it because, you know, you got to think, you didn't see tattooing like we do now. We didn't have social media. We didn't have satellite TV or that. So the only time you really saw tattoos was occasionally in a magazine article or on men who had been in the military or had been teddy boys. Like my dad's brother was a teddy boy. He had a fantastic tattoo off a guy called Rich Miggins. Rich Miggins tattooed in Harlesden in London. And for anyone who's into tattoo history, should just check out his work, sublime work that he did. So, you know, as I said, I had my members of the family that had been in the military and the Navy. And then in the 1970s, there was a rock and roll revival with all the old Teddy Boys and that. And I absolutely loved that music. I loved the style. I can remember the first time I saw somebody wearing creepers and a draped jacket.
Yeah.
You know, my dad had been a Teddy Boy. I started to go to these pubs when I was like quite young, and you'd see all these blokes with tattoos on them, and it just seemed to fit in with the image. And then one day I went into a pub, there were some business cards on a table for a tattoo artist called Dave Cash. He tattooed in Wood Green, North London. And a friend of mine, funny enough, he became a tattooist briefly after that. He was tattooed. And he said, come down to tattooist with us. So I went down with him and I was looking around, and I thought, I didn't ever really want a tattoo. And then when I came home, I kept thinking of this one design. It was a panther's head with a dagger behind it. It just kept floating up in my mind, and I thought, I've got to go and get that done. And that was it. February the 8th, 1976, £4, sat in there, nearly fainted like a wally. Got this tattoo done. And it's quite funny because I subsequently found out that although Dave Cash did this tattoo for me, it was Cash Cooper design. Cash Cooper, famous London tattooist, he also worked in Manchester and Salford.
Yeah,
so
I've heard of Cash Cooper.
Yeah, interesting, you know. So that was the beginning of it, being around the rock and roll scene, the Teds especially. And then punk rock came along, and I think the sort of transition from being into rock and roll, rockabilly, punk, psychobilly, all the different subcultures. I loved them all. I love music.
Yeah.
Love going to clubs, venues, pubs. I mean, back in my youth, everywhere you went, there was gigs. You know, you could get in, and it weren't like it is now, £90 to see somebody play a gig. It was just like a couple of quid or a few bob to get in, you know?
Yeah. So like, that's literally, so you've gone from, was that 76 then was that your first piece then?
Yeah.
And then like literally fully involved in that whole culture then?
Yeah, I mean, I was, it's so mad because nowadays you can just go straight online, you can buy everything, you know, everyone jokes about eBay and Amazon and that, but back then you didn't know where to get anything, you know. And Harrods, the big department store, Harrods always used to claim that they could get anything for anyone. And I phoned them up one day and said, can you get me a tattoo kit? And they were basically, no. But gradually, through my mate, who was the Ted, he got a bit of stuff, but he kept everything close to his chest.
Yeah.
But bit by bit, you know, I started to work out where you could get things, and it was a little bit like a Easter egg hunt, but for tattoo bits and pieces.
Where do you even start, like trying to find that stuff?
Well, the mad thing was, I saw in a biker magazine an advert for Spalding and Rogers. Now, Spalding and Rogers was one of the biggest suppliers in the world, but they were based in America. And you know, I got some business cards made that actually I did a false name and address saying that I was an experienced tattoo artist, because suppliers didn't really want to sell to people in this country who weren't tattooing. It was a closed shop. And I thought, if you send them a business card, they'll think you're a tattooist. So
legit, yeah.
I had these business cards made. I had the address for Spalding and Rogers. And then for a quirky thing in a pub talking to a geezer, he said that his cousin had got some tattooing stuff. I said, give us his number. So I called him up, landlines in them days, introduced myself, and I said, can I just ask you, get your stuff in England or America? And he said, I'll get it in England. I said, well, I've got an address in America. Do you fancy swapping addresses? So we met up in a pub. It was like two spies, you know, giving documents out. The reason I wanted to get stuff in this country was back then, you got what was called a pro forma invoice. You had to go and get an international monetary order. Do you know what I mean? These were days when we just got pound notes in our hands, didn't have a bank account, nothing.
Yeah.
So I got an address of a company called Ultra. They were based in Bradford, and really their stuff was terrible, you know. But there's so many tattoo artists of my generation who started with that stuff. If it weren't for Ultra Tattooing, we probably might not have made it, or the journey, the start of the journey would have been delayed.
Yeah. Were these guys manufacturing the stuff then? They
were, but it was, you know, a lot of it was very poor to start with. It was in the back of an old sex shop up in Bradford initially, where they traded out of. But as I say, it was a start. Then I started to find other suppliers in this country. There was Panther Products, Eddie Fretwell, an old boy called Ted Boswell, Tony Links, who ran the tattoo factory in Birmingham. So gradually you started to get bits and pieces. But it was a big learning curve. And to be honest with you, you know, when we talk about the old days, really looking at now what's available to people, and I don't knock that at all, because progress is progress, you know, we had to sort of learn by trial and error. I didn't even know you mix colours up to start with, you know. Can you imagine, for a lot of people that are watching this, young people, if someone said to you, right, there's some powder there, that's your colour. What are you going to do with it?
You'd be straight on YouTube,
you know,
Google. Or...
But that didn't exist back then. But I can remember I'd been in a tattoo shop and I saw a bottle of Listerine, and the colours used to smell of Listerine, because I either mixed the powder with Listerine or with Polish vodka.
Alcohol, yeah.
You know, so I could smell this. I thought, right, they must mix it with that. It was all like, and I got tattooed in loads of different shops because you needed to be a little bit nosy and see what was going on and see what things you could pick up. So it was a kind of stop-start journey, if you like, but gradually you make friends within the trade, you pick up things. And to be honest with you, the 70s and 80s were a real sort of time of experimentation within the tattoo world, to be honest with you. I mean, if you were to be able to transport yourself back there, I can remember we didn't have any black and grey work in this country. Nobody saw black and grey work. I went to America in 1982, and Just prior to that, Ed Hardy had brought out Tattoo Time magazine, which featured work by people like Jack Rudy, Mark Mahoney and that.
Yeah.
And I can remember I went to America, I got tattooed out there in East LA, and I just thought, wow, you know, look, they're just mixing the black with a bit of water because they just worked it straight out of cup then. They didn't have all the pre-made, like, you know, expensive shades and that. They just do it as you go. And the way that they used to do it, because, you know, when you're doing black and grey, sometimes it looks a sort of a reddy brown, doesn't it? It was called cherrying out, like using, you know, they say, oh, they're cherrying out the tattoo. And I can remember I came back and said to a mate of mine who tattooed in Ilford, he always reminds me of this. I went, fucking hell. I said, you know what? You can just use black ink and get the same money as doing a full colour tattoo. It was funny back
That's
then.
quicker probably as well.
You know, but I can remember, and it's honest to God's truth, in this country, I can remember up until Ed Hardy really struck up with Tattoo Time and people started to take note of him, nobody knew what a Magnum was. A 5 Magnum was called a smoothie. You know, then there's terminology that's been forgotten now. Same with round shaders. You'd push them through a towel, push them through your jeans, opens them up. That's how you get like flick shading, shotgun shading, pepper shading, whatever you want. There were so many things to learn. And we put on the London Tattoo Show in 1986, which then went on to become the Dunstable Tattoo Expos. And each year that they took place, new people would turn up and you'd be seeing work. I remember seeing Bernie Luther there for the first time, Paul Booth, and you're just looking at this work going, fucking hell, look at that. In this country, Darren Stairs, Tony Clifton, Ian Redding. Not many people probably know Ian Redding. Ian Redding was probably the most influential tattoo artist in this country ever. His realism, I've seen him do back pieces freehand. If anyone can sort of, you know, look online, Ian Redding, just look at his stuff. Look at what he was doing for the period of time that he was doing. The big historical back pieces. There was a guy called Roy Summers from up in Norfolk Way. Amazing work. Phil Bond down in Torquay, George Bone. He's still tattooing. George Bone, he's tattooing 60 years. He's in London doing full colour Japanese work. Totally amazing. There were just so many people and so many things happening. But you only sort of found those things out initially by attending events or if you were exchanging photos or if somebody came through your door. Then we went through the phase where magazines started to come out. Initially, you'd see a few pictures in biker magazines or girly magazines, you know, as they used to call them. And then some of the biker magazines did tattoo specials. And then in the end, we ended up with so many tattoo magazines, ridiculous. Next door, in a little news agency shop next door, at one time, it used to be all soft-core girly magazines on the top shelf. But I took a photo when they got rid of all them, and it was just completely tattoo magazines. There's about 13 or 14 titles, you know, so we were bombarded with that. Then reality TV came along. Yeah. You know, and for good or bad, all these things have helped elevate tattooing to where it is now. Yeah. And I don't think it can ever be underestimated, the power of the TV programs that came out, you know, Miami Ink especially and LA Ink, you know.
That was commercially, that was probably the first real time I watched Miami Ink, when I was a bit younger. And I think at that point it was really seeing it in like magazines, but like musicians and stuff for me. I think it's such a broad topic to even like, I don't even know where to begin. But I guess, obviously how much material is available now compared to back then. You look at these people that you're mentioning who were clearly pioneering these styles and you think how were you able to do that back then without such little information?
Well, they say necessity is the mother of invention. And I mean, we have to give credit to tattoo artists who we probably don't even know. Do you know what I mean? There'll be people out there who either didn't want publicity, never received publicity, who will have discovered or invented little things that have helped our trade. I mean, a guy said today in the shop, why you got a rubber band around your machine, you know, to hold on the needle bar? And he was saying, you think they would have invented something else, which they have done. There's been little things that click on the bar, needle runners invented by Steve Cutter. But also we used to have blocks of rubber fitted onto the armature bar that you push the needle into. Yep. I've got some where the nipple on the armature bar has got a thread on it and you screw a little nut down to hold it on. Yeah. But we have to think that years ago, they didn't change needles. They might use the same needle for, a year or more on a machine. So it didn't really matter if there was a little nut holding needle bar onto.
It's mad to think.
Yeah. And now we've gone completely the other way, and we've become, whilst there's the hygiene aspect of tattooing, we've also become a very throwaway trade, a very environmentally unfriendly trade in a lot of respects.
Yeah, it's all just disposable, like all these cartridges and stuff. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you could, if you wanted, if you've got an autoclave sterilizer, you could, with needles and needle bars, sterilize them and use them numerous times. I mean, people are probably going, "Oh my God, that's terrible," but that's the way it was. If you're using hospital grade sterilization, it's fine. But we've got to the point where it's easier to buy plastic tubes, bin them out. There's a girl called Clara Welsh. She was here the other day. I was chatting to her, and she uses everything that is biodegradable and environmentally friendly. And it's really interesting. She compiled a whole list, and she was explaining what's good, what's not quite so good. And I guess we are, in some respects, trapped in an economic climate where some people will go for the cheapest options or the most convenient. But, as I was saying, I don't want to sound as if I'm ranting or that, but I do think as a trade, we have to really look at how much stuff we're putting into the environment that we shouldn't be. And I know that there's some companies like Black Claw, they're making their sort of biodegradable packaging and cartridges. Yeah. There's Greenhouse Tattoo Supplies. There's lots of people.
Some of the tubes as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so important. Everything is like, it's become quite a throwaway, hasn't it? So it's good to see people trying to use that aspect of it for sure.
Another quick one about hex cartridges from the Ghost cartridge range. These are the most recently introduced, but these are the stipple shaders. They come in a number of configurations, but they're really good for anyone who likes to do a lot of stipple work, but over a larger scale. Make sure you grab these exclusively at Star with the code ATFCT10 for 10% off.
I mean, the big question obviously is like, and what I would love to know is, could you pinpoint maybe one biggest change that you've seen in the industry? Is there one? When we talk about like the kind of
when we're talking about the biggest changes in the tattoo industry, I mean, it depends from what period of time you came into it. Because I mean, prior to the invention of the electric tattoo machine, that had to be one of the biggest things. But I weren't even born then. But in my career, I'd say that, and I've said it at a few talks I've done, I say to young say to young tattooists, if you try and imagine walking into your tattoo studio and we're going to take out, just from when I started in the tattoo trade, what we didn't have. So let's take your stencil machine out the shop. Let's take your iPad, your iPhone, right? Let's take out your disposable tubes, your ready mixed colours, your ready-made needles, all of that stuff. So you can imagine it would be quite shocking to not be able to put your Instagram on and get your likes and your clicks and put your posts up and that. But I'd say the things, as I said, in my career were the stencil machine. Prior to the stencil machine,
I remember hand stenciling,
Yeah, you could hand stencil, you could have acetate stencils, but a tattoo artist called Terry Dino, he tattoos in Weston-super-Mare now. He used to be in the Uxbridge Road in London. He said to me, look, there's this Romeo Alcatel thing they use in schools. He goes, but you can make tattoo stencils with them. And he said, anyone who hasn't got one of these is a dinosaur. And I can remember this old tattooist come to my shop and he went, you don't need one of them. I can make any stencil that you can make. So I photocopied a piece of newspaper. I fed it through, peeled it off and said, look at that. It's a perfect copy of that. I said, now do that with a hand stencil.
Yeah.
So I say, the stencil machine combined with photocopiers that reduced and enlarged really was a game changer for us. Ready-made needles also and ready-mixed colours helped. I mean, I often say it, the most precious commodity I feel that we have in life is time. So if you've got something that can save you time, I mean, people will wax lyrical about making their own needles and that. Mate, it's a horrible job. Yeah. You might be able to make good needles, but, the smell of flux up your nostrils, the taste
soldering. I mean, I know I spent hours soldering needles and you think like, if that was the only option, do you know what I mean? Then you mustn't have had any time.
We're saying a stencil machine really, really helped. Then I think if we're looking at other big changes, the television programs definitely were a game changer. When Miami Ink came out, a lot of the trade, myself included, were probably feeling a bit uneasy about it, that you're suddenly bringing this to the masses. You suddenly saw, didn't you, loads of shops started to not call themselves tattoo shops. They just put the word ink on the end.
Yeah.
Anywhere Ink, My Town Ink. That's how it happened. It became trendy. And then when Kat Von D came along, where you're sitting now, she actually tattooed there. Kat Von D came to England to do the Sharon Osbourne show and ended up doing some tattooing here. So. And in a way, some people have been a bit detrimental to Kat, but, she was, for women tattooists, she was a pioneer. She, you've got your early pioneers like Cindy Ray, Jessie Knight, Winnie Ayrton and that. But she made, I think, a lot of females realise we can do this. And look at the immense array of talent that we've got with female tattoo artists now.
Oh my God, I was literally having a very similar conversation in the previous episode about what she's done for women in the industry. And I think it's great, and for them to feel like, do you know what I mean, confident to be able to
yeah.
So, do you know what I mean? So much talent.
Yeah, loads of talent, because I've got magazines. I stuck a page of them on Instagram one time from 1983. When these guys had a meeting and said no women should be involved in tattooing. And I'd been to America and I listed the tattoo artists I'd met out there, like Candy Everett, Gary Barbers and that, and just said, if you think there's no place for females in the tattoo world, think again. These people are inspirational, So, as I said, the TV programs made a difference. And then I just think you've got to say that the internet combined with social media platforms have been the other big thing for it. I mean, without social media, people would be melting down, wouldn't they? You wouldn't be able to say, I'm doing this podcast. I wouldn't be able to talk all my nonsense and that. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's just getting the stuff out, and I'm so grateful. I mean, I've like 5-6 years of tattooing. Like, there's way more content available now than there even was.
There could even be too much content in a way.
Yeah, and it's confusing. There's some people who just chat shit and don't really know what they're talking about. There's a lot of people kind of coming into the industry now that are being given false information.
Yeah, mind you, false information has always been given. Yeah, there's always been like mad things in the tattoo world. When I first started, I used to sit downstairs in this little shop. I'm in the middle of nowhere. It was tough to make it as a tattooist then. I used to work as a dustman in the mornings, so that I had a wage coming in up at 5 every morning, do the bins, open the shop in the afternoon and at weekends. And some of the old boys I used to talk to, I'd phone them up and they'd be, how's business? I'd be, oh, it's dead. And they'd be like, oh, mate, we're booming. You know what I mean? Even if they weren't, they'd say that to you because really they didn't want you in the trade, so funny things like that.
Yeah. But talk because we haven't actually really touched on it yet. So talk to me about kind of a new wave and how it kind of started, how you began here.
Well, when I started off tattooing in my kitchen, which was probably one of the first private studios. You could have a bacon sandwich and a tattoo. But no, seriously, back then, to try and get a studio was hard, You didn't see many high street tattoo studios. There was a lot of prejudice. I mean, there was places you couldn't get in if you had tattoos on you.
Yeah.
It's different from now. They wouldn't have been able to treat you the way they did then.
Is this kind of like, what is this, late 70s, early 80s?
Yeah, late 70s, early 80s. So, as I said, I was working out of my house and it's just a really mad story. The people who owned it were devout Italian Catholics. They owned the house next door. The house I was in, they bought as investment. It was all bed sitters, So, I told you I'd worked at a hospital, which was at the top of the road. And at the very entrance to it was a gatehouse, old gatehouse, but it was a mortuary. And one of the jobs when I worked at the hospital was we had to move the bodies of people that passed away. It was a psychiatric and geriatric hospital, so there was a lot of old people that died.
Yeah.
And I told a few of the lads, you know, fucking hell, I hated it the first time I had to move a body. This is where I took them. Anyway, they thought it'd be funny to break in there, get a body, leave it on my doorstep with a sign saying tattoo me, you know, lads being lads. Wow. Anyway, long story short, they got a coffin out of there and then got disturbed. So they didn't get the body, but they left the coffin in the garden as a joke. But what they didn't realise was the people who owned the house, their little boy was dying of cancer. So you can imagine your son's dying, you're experiencing that. You're very religious with it. You come out as a coffin in the garden. They just said to me, you got to go, you know. And they were nice about it. They didn't, you know, they understood it wasn't me. But people had been, loads of people had been coming to the shop to the house to get tattooed. And I knew it sat uneasy with them, you know.
Yeah, it didn't look good.
So then began the trying to find somewhere. So a guy that I tattooed said, my dad's got a shop that he don't use, which was this shop that we're in now, which is, for anyone who's been here, it's in the middle of nowhere. But it was a little grocer's shop at one time.
Okay.
And he's just said to me, look, I'll rent this shop out to you. So I had to make a deal with him. It was very small. We partitioned it off. So I was just renting a little bit of the downstairs building. And that's how I started down there. And in them days, I still carry business cards all the time, but anyone I saw with tattoos, I'll just give them business cards. One of the things I realised back then was that publicity, and I learnt this through people like Dennis Cockle and Ed Hardy, and even looking back, George Birchett, people that were, and Les Scusi, people that were good publicists for their businesses. So what I did, I started to write to magazines. Any type of magazine I thought would do a feature on tattooing, I wrote to the features editor. Because if you're giving them a feature, it saves them having to look for one. Do you know what I mean? So I used to write letters. Everything was done by letter then. I used to write letters to them and just say, if you would like to do an article on tattooing, you know, I'm happy to talk to you and that. Loads of them picked up on it, absolutely loads. I've done about 60 different magazines in a year. So you imagine that's all free publicity.
Yeah.
You know, so people started to come to the shop and your name started to get out there. Plus, with the sort of punk rock thing, I'd started to do a lot of those designs, which lots of the punk started to come there. You know, the classic pitch, I think most people who know me will have seen it, of the girl with the Borneo tattoos on her head and the big red Mohican. You know, her name was Adi. Loads of photographers picked up on her. And that image was everywhere. And I always say to everyone, sometimes in your life you get a lucky break. And to me, my lucky break, or one of them, was the fact that I'd been to America. Leo Zulueta had given me this book of Borneo designs. This girl saw them, wanted them on her head, on the side of her head, striking looking girl.
Yeah.
Everything fell into
Stars
place,
align, yeah.
You know, for that. So it was kind of a little bit of a whirlwind that started to happen, you know. And then I started to go to conventions, and I actively sought out to meet people that I felt were doing something in the trade. I can remember when I first started, this guy came to my shop. He used to get tattooed by me, Panda. And he said, I was up in Reading. There's a guy out there. He's a bit sick of your name, don't think your work's anything. And I said, oh, yeah. So I gave him some photos. I said, next time you're in there, drop them in, just see what he thinks of them, you know. Anyway, next time he came back, he gave me an envelope. And it was from Ian of Reading. That's the guy it was. I looked at these photos. And like my work was at ground zero and he was at the top of Mount Everest. That's the golfing class. He was just absolutely unbelievable. And then I just thought, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I don't think I can compete with people like that.
But why would he want to send that to try and put you down? Because
no. He just said, thanks for the photos. This is what I do.
Fine.
know. But I know, you know, I love Ian now, but I knew that he fucking knew. Yeah. Anyway, I got in contact with him. I went and met him and we struck up a great friendship. And I learned so much from him. Just watching him work was just like unbelievable. And then we were going to what were called the Tattoo Club of Great Britain conventions. They were organised by a guy called Lionel Titchener in Oxford. Lionel produced his own little magazine. He made machines. He's got a tattoo museum. You know, he's a very intelligent man, very important man within the British tattoo scene.
Yeah.
And he started to put these conventions on in hotels. He wanted to sort of up the image of tattooing, you know, but they were pretty much for tattoo artists and guests. And then Hanky Panky put on a convention in Amsterdam that I went to. I'd been to Ed Hardy's Tattoo Expo in Long Beach on the Queen Mary. Mind-blowing. Ed gathered together all these amazing tattoo artists, the likes of Greg Irons, Bob Roberts. You know, we're just seeing the Dutchman, Mike Malone, all these people that are so important in the development of tattooing. They were there. So myself, Ian, a guy called Brent who tattooed in Dunstable, Mickey Sharps, Louis Malloy. A load of us all got together to decide to try and do our own convention. And in the end, there were 7 of us who put on the first London one. And then it went down to 4 of us who worked together. We called ourselves Tattoo Incorporated, you know, play on the word Inc. Incorporated.
Yeah, that ink
and we started a supply company where we were buying stuff in bulk so that we could sell it to our own artists within the trade, our trade, not super big prices. And Dunstable, it started to attract lots of people from around the world, as I say, and you know, there's just so many people that the new generation and my generation all owe a great thanks to, because they really broke down barriers. I mean, Mickey Sharps, a lot of people will say I use a Mickey Sharps machine. I don't really know if they realise what a fantastic tattooist he was. He'd done amazing work, such bold, colourful work. He started to do Celtic work. You know, he worked on colours that he sold, produced these amazing colours. You know,
I've got an old Mickey Sharps colour packer.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, not many people have seen his work because he retired quite early from actual tattooing. But yeah, I mean, Mickey done some amazing work.
Yeah, it's mad. Like you've just kind of really sought out, like by going out to these places and kind of doing all of this networking. That's obviously, it's that like strive to.
Well, I still do that, you know. I mean,
you've obviously got like quite a healthy obsession with the industry. Do you know what I mean?
I have, yeah. But I feel that in a lot of ways, the trade's been so good to me. You know, it's allowed me to travel the world. To you know, I'm not the greatest tattooist in the world, but I've been lucky that I've been able to tattoo people, and people put their trust in you. But I still love meeting people and doing things. I mean, look. This year I've been Brighton Tattoo Convention. I've done a tattoo talk in Glasgow with Les Bowen, the tattoo who's been tattooing over 60 years in Australia, and Terry Manton, who runs Scottish Tattoo History. While I was up in Glasgow, I went round to the Panopticon, which was an old musical where the tattooed lady would be. I went to some of the old tattoo studios there. This week I just went to Manchester, Rambo's Tattoo Museum, visiting tattoo artists up there.
Yeah.
I still...
given a talk at like Hancock Museum about tattooing.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, that was good fun in Newcastle. You know, I'd done a couple in Australia as well. And then, of course, when you're there, you're meeting the people in Australia. And I met people like, sadly, he's passed away now, Greg Ardron, total mad character. Tony Cohen, one of the most famous tattooists in Australia. Rhys Gordon, you know, he's a real great Australian tattooist. I went to, I think, 23 studios in 10 days. And people probably think, when you go to Australia to do that for? But it is my passion, and just meeting the people. I love hearing the stories, you know, the tattoo stories always get embroidered, you know, and they get sort of embellished and that. But there's so many great stories. And I was saying to some people the other day, you know, I write down every day what happens in my tattoo studio. I've done it for about 30 years.
Really?
Right? Yeah. So this will be in there today.
Sick.
You know, the people that were in this morning getting tattooed. I'm waiting for some other people to come today. Their plane's been delayed. You know, just them little stories will be in there. And then every now and then I'll pick it up, look back, and I'll see a memory. You know, some days are not great. Other days are fantastic, you know. Yeah. You know, I had an old lady, her family paid for her to have a tattoo done. She's 85 years old, got a tattoo. She'd done a scuba dive. She'd skydived. You know, she had this bucket list of things, and she wanted to get a tattoo. She was a Tottenham fan, and she wanted, Coys, come on, you Spurs. So, because I know people at the club and I knew she was coming in, I got in touch with them and said, is there any chance you could get a birthday card or anything sent over to me? So when she came, there was a card here from the club for her, signed by some of the players. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So she's got a surprise tattoo at her age. She's been treated like a queen. She's got this thing. I love all of that. I love all the good things in the trade, because this trade, people probably heard me say this before as well, and I got it from another old-time tattooist. He was speaking about a tattoo artist who did really, really well, but just went out on the piss all the time. Do you know what I mean? He was just like living the lifestyle, And he said he thought that the tattoo tree would always bear him fruit, but he never looked after that tree and it died. And I've always said, look after tattooing and it'll look after you. And it's important to put things into it. I see loads of people flexing. Do you know, I fucking hate that.
Yeah.
That is one of the things I passionately hate. Have what you want, but you don't. Sometimes I just think people just really give it large.
Oh, man, I can't agree more.
And some of our customers, right, they haven't got huge amounts of money. And we try and look after people as loads of tattoo studios do. But I just think it's really important to just keep your feet on the ground and remain humble in it. You know what I mean?
100%.
That's just my personal view,
Yeah, you have to give back. I mean, something that I'm trying to do with the podcast, at least, I love getting out there and chatting, tattooing. Do you know what I mean? And to be able to I've been given foot ups to get into an industry which was, it was difficult for me to get into, and I got a foot up and I got given an opportunity. If I can kind of pass that on and give something back, then
on a positive side, though, there are loads and loads of people in the trade that do give loads back, and you see lots of people that do great things for charities, and for the less fortunate, and that, and there's also people that are giving inspiration to the trade, and it doesn't matter what age you are, because there's young people, I see the work Tanya Buxton does with the Mastectomy Alliance and that, for people that have had breast reconstruction, and that, that is just so admirable in what she does. And there's other people there. I remember this group of guys from Liverpool, Global Tattoo Supplies. They did a thing where they got loads of people to donate money to buy rucksacks that they then put blankets, socks, gloves, hats, food in, and went round to the homeless in Liverpool to give them these in the winter months. I love stuff like that, helping people out.
Yeah, 100%. Don't forget to head over to Instagram or YouTube, get in the comment section and let me know who you want to hear from in the next episode. What I would like to do maybe is just touch on society's view on tattooing, tattoo artists, and what I would love to know, how have you seen that kind of develop? How, first of all, is tattooing and the art form viewed in society today? And maybe where was that kind of turning point? Has it just been a slow evolution? Because we talk about how underground and quite taboo it was.
Well, I equate it with punk rock. When punk rock first came out, the press was screaming indignation at it. It was a little bit of a wild child, maybe even underground thing. And then gradually it became more mainstream. It became a bit of a uniform. And then you started to see fashion houses would pick up a little bit on it. You'd see it becoming on TV, maybe in adverts and that. And in the end, punk rock still exists, but it's not the beast with the impact, I don't think, that it used to have. Now, with tattooing, it was quite underground. It was frowned. Everyone used to say it's for sailors and prostitutes and things like that. But more and more people have got tattoos now, different cultures, just people from different walks of life, different ages. It's become open to anyone, and I feel that some of the taboos and the fears that surrounded it, I think they've gone now. People used to be scared, is it going to hurt me? Now they see anyone, a 90-year-old woman getting a tattoo, she can get it done, I can get it done. Years ago, lots of tattoo studios, the windows would be blacked out, and you'd be thinking, oh God, when I go across that threshold, what am I going to meet? Now you've got shops on high streets, beautifully decorated shops, welcoming shops. You know, you walk in and somebody's smiling. It's not like intimidating as it was. So I think it has been a slow progression, really. And it's now so mainstream and so acceptable that in some respects, not the actual doing the tattooing, but some of it's boring, isn't it? Because you're seeing, the hypocrisy, if you like, or is it the acceptance of companies that would never have looked at tattoos, that now will have somebody with a tattooed face on an advert. I mean, years ago, the only tattoo advert with somebody with their face tattooed was somebody eating a Bounty ice cream. And they got this little tribal pattern on their face now. But now you see people with tattoos on all different. It's as if every advert should have somebody with a tattoo on it, you know?
Yeah.
And
more for like inclusivity.
Yeah. And whilst it puts the image out there to people, and lots of people do have tattoos, so why wouldn't you have them on the adverts? But it has become so acceptable that I'm sure if King Charles rocked up at his coronation, with a big heart on his neck with R.I.P. Mum, nobody would say anything.
Yeah.
It is that acceptable.
Yeah. Are you glad that it's going that way or has gone that way? Or would you rather there was some level of...
I think that for somebody, who's been in the tattoo trade for a long time and... has promoted tattooing along with lots of other people. We can't decry the fact that it's got to where it is now. Ed Hardy sent me a letter years and years ago, and I can't remember his exact wording, but he sort of said, we've created a monster that's gone out of control. And tattooing is a huge industry. I wouldn't say it's a monster, but it is massive now. So we have to accept that. All of us who, do we not do anything? Do we hide from social media, from doing podcasts or that? Or do we do that? It's out there. It's our trade and it is everywhere now. The only thing I would say from a personal point of view, I kind of wish that there was no visible tattooing now when you're wearing a suit. Do you know what I mean? Because I think it'd be really interesting. We see so much everywhere that when I was in Japan, I stood on an escalator and somebody in front of me was going down. I could just see the top of a back piece. And I thought, oh, God, I wonder what that back piece is,
Yeah, for sure.
But, tattooing is freedom of choice for people. So people, wherever they want to do it, whatever they want to do and whatever they want to show, that's their choice. I think there's some pretty mad stuff being done now. And I quite often wonder if... the people wearing, especially some of the extreme sort of porno tattoos, what people would think seeing someone like that at the beach or the swimming pool, especially if you've got your kids with you.
Yeah, for sure. But then that aspect of it can sometimes then feel like a bit of a mockery of the art form. I don't know.
But some of the work is just executed in such an amazing way, and then it goes back to, the freedom of choice of the individual. So... yeah, tattooing has got lots of questions out there with variable answers, I think,
Yeah. It just comes down to personal opinion, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to know yours, Really good time for me to ask you the question left for you from the previous guest. And that was...
what positive change they'd like to specifically see happening in the industry?
Well, I think the industry... it's in really good shape. We've got the greatest artists ever. We've got the best equipment. We've got the best understanding of hygiene and sterilisation. As we touched on earlier, I think that we, in some respects, need to be environmentally more aware of what's going on. I think that lots of people getting lots of tattooing done very quickly. This is just a personal thing. I'm 65 and still getting tattooed. I've got a bodysuit, but still squeezing little bits in. I think...
you still got some space left.
A few little bits, yeah. But I just think for a lot of people, they're getting filled up so quick that sometimes maybe if they feel like they should take a little slow down and a break from it, I would love to see customers who book appointments turn up for them, or at least have the decency to let the artist know they're not coming, because you're hearing it from a lot of people now that they're getting no shows, cancellations. We are in unprecedented times for this generation. you know, with the utility bills, with the uncertainty of finances for people, especially after the lockdown times. I mean, in my career, this is the third time that I've come across what we would call probably a recession within the trade. You know, we had the boom and bust of the Thatcher years, recession with Blair, and now we've got this. So I think the trade is going to have to, people are going to have to like cut their cloth accordingly. I'd like to see with suppliers the size of the colour bottles not reducing and the price rising. I'd like to see it the other way around.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't know if that will happen, but I do think the trade's in a good place. I think there's a lot more awareness of many things within the trade, and you know, I touched on it with you before we started doing the interview. Inclusivity is really important within the trade. I think we're really moving in the right direction, you know. And when people sometimes get a little bit bent out of shape, you know what? If you had tried to start tattooing many years ago, people from my generation would tell you how we were threatened by people, intimidated, and you know what? When that happens to you, fuck them, because you just got to be more determined, you know. And nothing stopped me from doing it. And, you know, I did have people that scared me, but, you know, you got to just keep pushing forward and do the right thing for the trade. So yeah, I think there's a lot of positivity there, you know.
Where do you think personally that like determination to see it through and to stay within your craft and, you know, and really try and perfect it, but not only, but also go above and beyond? Well, where does that kind of come from? Where's that drive?
I think, listen, I've had a mad life, honestly. Loads of mad things have happened to me. I've done loads of mad things, I guess. But tattooing has been something that's kept me pretty grounded, and it's been a focus. And I do find it all really interesting, from the history to the creation of art, of seeing what other people do. And it's like, it is a job, but it's so enjoyable to me. I think the thing that I would say to any youngsters coming into, and I don't say that in a horrible way when I say youngsters, I mean young people in the trade, is to make sure you have some you time though. Do you know what I mean? Because it can become all-consuming, this business. You need to make sure you eat healthy. You need to look after your health, you know, mental and physical health, because, you know, listen, I just now started to get a few aches and pains after years of doing the job. But, you know, as we said earlier, if you keep looking after that tattoo tree, it'll bear you fruit. But you've got to look after yourself as well, you know. And you will find times in the trade where you feel down. Maybe you do a tattoo that it doesn't work out the way you want. Well, look at it, and then on the next one, work out what went wrong, what you want to change. You know, when you get those reviews or those criticisms from people, we can't always accept all the good things, people. We can't live off everyone saying he's a jolly good fellow, you know what I mean? Sometimes people are right when they make a criticism of something you do. And sometimes they're not. Sometimes people just want to try and fuck you up. But you have to learn to take that on the chin, you know? It's like, I spoke to some friends the other day, they were really upset about a review. This is restaurant people. I said, think about how many meals you serve in the course of a year, and one person's dissatisfied. I said, you know, you can either think, yeah, maybe that meal was bad, or maybe they just didn't like your food, or maybe they just like complaining. So you do find that, you know, as I said, you've got to have a little bit of a thick hide sometimes, but also a compassionate side, you know. It's like, it's one of the important things as you, I think, go on in life, you go through experiences and you change and you grow as a person. And I found, especially within my trade, through a tragedy that happened a few years ago, quite close to me, that now when people come here, if they've lost somebody, I can sit down and talk with them. You know, the other week I had some people in there who, unfortunately, their son committed suicide, and I spent time talking with them. And the father said to me, you know, I just want to say thank you, you know, because you were able to spend this time, and I feel that you understand what I'm going through. And I kind of said to him, it's true, you know, I can tell you how I see things, but 20 years ago, I'd never have known how to deal with that situation. Do you know what I mean? So I think, you know, the longer you go on in the trade, you meet so many people, you see so many different experiences. I mean, I remember when the 7/7 bombs went off in London, I was working on a film shoot that day. Yeah, and it was, you know, it was like black day in our history, if you like, for, you know, for innocent people dying. But then the following week, we tattooed the friends of one of the people that died in that, you know what I mean? And it was very interesting looking back to that, how a tattoo bonded them together in memory. You know, there's so many, I always said if I wrote a book on tattooing, I'd call it Every Picture Tells a Story. And, you know, and quite often with tattooing, there are stories attached, you know, to pieces that we do. And you can get great connections with people in your trade as well, you know, with your customers and that, can't you? You know, so
yeah. Do you have like a standout client or experience that, like, you know, it really kind of stands out to you as kind of maybe a highlight in your career?
I mean, over the course of my life, there's been lots. I mean, you know, I met one guy who, he started to teach me karate years ago. And, you know, I learned a lot of things through him. I'd say that it would really be impossible to pick one person on that, because so many people have just brought so much into my life, into the shop. You know, just with their different experiences with what they've done. I mean, I had a guy called Martin Clark who worked with me. And we worked at a convention called Ink for Heroes at Catterick Army Garrison. And it was to raise money, similar to Help for Heroes, but called Ink for Heroes. But we said to the organisers, we'd like to come along and we'd like you to give us a free booth. And they were like, what? And we said, no, let us finish. We want to tattoo any soldiers that have been wounded in conflict free of charge for 2 days. It doesn't matter how long we work. So they set us up with that, and we got all these people that emailed us, booked in with us. And, you know, man, when you see the things that people have gone through and what they've endured, and you just think, you know, these are young people that are sent off to war, to killing zones by politicians who never fucking go there themselves. And when you see the aftermath of, you know, what is left for the people that have been sent there, let alone the people that live in those countries, what they've had to endure, it was so humbling to you know, listen to what these people have gone through and how their lives have been impacted by what's happened to them. And really, a lot of them have been abandoned by successive governments, you know. So there's, you know, there's also loads of uplifting stories that you get. I mean, if I was to get all them diaries out now, I could go through them and find stuff, you know. Yeah. Just people that have overcome things in their lives, and you just think to yourself, fuck me, I'm moaning about the fact it's raining out there. This person's gone through this terrible experience in life. Yeah, life-changing things.
And that's what I love about this, you know, I say job, but, you know, just this trade, to be able to, you know, spend time with these people, such a wide variety of people, and, you know, I mean, sit down and listen to them, you know, and yeah, I think it's great. It's great that we can do that.
Right, little word about some of my favourite cartridges from Ghost. These are the Nano, and obviously, as the name suggests, they're designed for a lot of the finer work. These go all the way down to a 0.18mm up to a 0.35. Now, the ones I've got here are a 3-liner in the 0.2 and a 1-liner in the 0.25. Make sure you go and grab yourself some exclusively from Star. If you use the code ATFCT10, you get 10% off as well.
Yeah, there's still there's so much that I could sit here and just ask you.
Mate, it's just when, you know, once you get going, you sort of like go off at tangents, and, you know, you're thinking somebody who has over 4 decades of stories and memories and everything. And I forget some of them, and then they come back. But it is truly amazing. There's a sign up there. It says, if these walls could talk. And it's like, if this studio could talk. Even when you walked in here earlier on, I said to you, there was a guy being tattooed.
Yeah.
His stories of his life, he's had a mad life. So people come in and you hear that. And it's just, we are, in some respects, unpaid counsellors sometimes.
Yeah.
There's a funny thing I always say, like, in a tattoo studio, it used to be sort of like a domain, and the tattoo artist, if he was a man, say he would be the king of that domain, the jester, the agony aunt, the confessor, all these different things, and people would rant on in tattoo studios and that, and then the customer would go away and either be thinking, fucking hell, or they'd go away with a funny story, or the artist would, and tattoo studios are a world within this world, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. You step in and it was like you're in a completely different world. And it's crazy. I mean, when you walk into this place and it's got such a cool vibe to it.
You're talking,
there's so much history. It looks like you've got a lot of things. One thing I wanted to ask you, right?
Yeah.
Let's say the building's on fire and you've only got time to grab one item. What is it you're grabbing?
Well, oh my God. What would I grab out of here? Oh, mate. I think I'm
such an eclectic collection of
to be honest with you, all my really good stuff I don't keep here. The stuff which got real sentimental meaning. There's so much stuff here. You know what? If I'm really honest with you, I'd grab all the pictures of my dog that are on the wall down there. I had a dog. I know people say you shouldn't have a dog in a tattoo studio, but I had a dog came to work here every day for 9 years. Everyone knew him. He was just the most mad old character of a dog. I mean, he looked like a big old pit bull type thing, but he was just like a really hilarious character who just used to sit on a cushion in the shop, and people would stroke him. It used to make him feel calm. And then he died 2 days before lockdown. I put a little thing out on Instagram about him, and you'll see it as you go out downstairs. Loads of artists done pictures of him. You know what I mean? And loads of people sent messages. It's just mad to think that a 4-legged friend touched so many hearts. You know what I mean? Honestly, it's just mad. I think
it's great to have a dog in a studio.
People have had tattoos of him. Yeah, when you talk about having animals in a studio, mate, I mean, I've had a guy come in with a giant monitor lizard on the lead, a bloke come in with a cat on a lead. On a lead, yeah. I had a bloke come in with a big hawk on his arm.
Just sitting there while he's getting tattooed.
Yeah. I mean, Emmanuel Adebayor, the footballer, was in here where he got scared out of his life when the bloke come in with the hawk because it started flapping around. But, tattoo studios used to have mad things in them. Cash Cooper, they said he had an eagle and a big cat in his shop. Roy Boy Cooper, who tattooed in America, he had tigers in his shop. I mean, I don't believe in keeping big cats in captivity, but, tattooing had that, I guess, from years ago, a bit of the showman to it, didn't it? Because you found at circuses, carnivals, sideshows.
Just a bit raw and lawless
connection. But and there's lots of people who do have dogs in shops, and a lot of people do like to stroke them and feel comfortable with them, don't they?
100%. It's mad. We'll have to kind of tie it up. What I would love to know from you then is a question that you'd want to leave for the next guest.
A question that I'd like to leave for the next guest is, would you like to come to my studio and I'll show you how to make needles if you've never made them, just for the experience of it? If you have, well, the question's wasted.
There you go. Who would pass up on that? Because I certainly wouldn't.
Well, we're going to do a needle making day, so you're welcome to come over.
Sick.
It's just there's a few people actually, have said to me, how do you make needles and that? Not that they want to do it because, all the time, but some old timers might say, oh, you're giving a secret. Well, I'm not. I would love to show it to a few people and hopefully they remember how to do it. and we don't lose the things that the trade were founded on, if you like, so.
Yeah, 100%. It's so important to kind of keep that alive. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The other thing I'd say is to people, if you've got a machine and it stops working, don't go on the internet and buy another one. Work out what could be wrong with it, because most of them are fixable, and people, especially if you're using coils and that, you should know how to change a spring and that. So
yeah, at the very least. Yeah, I mean, I've been guilty of that with rotaries and just throw them in the bin. I guess we can touch on it briefly. I don't think I've actually spoken to you. I'd love to know, and I know a lot of the artists that kind of listen to this would love to know, what equipment are you using? I know we spoke briefly about using dildos, but I mean...
Okay, so... Ever since I started in the trade, I like to try everything out. I've probably got, way too many machines. But at the minute, I'm using a Bishop Packer, a Valk Nut pen, and a Rotary Works pen, because I just happen to be going through that phase and loving them. I've got loads of coil machines downstairs, Dan Selfmade. I've got there's Paul Rogers down there. There's Mickey Sharps. There's hatchback irons. There's everything. Just depends how I feel. But at the minute, I'm using the pens, and I've said it before. When all the people start saying, I'm a promoter of the rotor, I'm loyal to the coil, I'm dildo baggins or whatever. Listen, it doesn't matter what you use, providing the end result is a tattoo that your customer loves. And Ed Hardy, I was at a convention once, and a guy came up to Ed Hardy and said, "What do you think of this tattoo?" And Ed Hardy said, "What do you think of it?" And the guy said, "I love it." And he said, "Well, then you've got the perfect tattoo." And that's the best we can do, is to make something that a customer loves, and it doesn't matter what it's been done with, because I'm sure that the hand-poked artists of the 1800s were gleeful when an electric machine came along and helped them out. They didn't go, "Oh, you're using electric. I'm loyal to the stick." So
yeah, why wouldn't you be? Do you know what I mean? If it makes your life easier.
I mean, it is weird going to conventions and not hearing the buzz as much as you used to. Because I always used to say, when I was a youngster, wherever I went, I'd be walking around back streets exploring, and if I heard the noise of a tattoo machine buzzing away,
sound,
it was like, whoa, it lured you in there. Now it's totally silent. But, listen, whatever works, that's it, isn't it?
I didn't have time to actually come and stop off for a conversation at Brighton, but I was tattooing at Brighton this year. Where can people find you? Where are you going to be for the remainder of the year, at least? So
I'll be at Bristol Tattoo Convention that Ginger Phil puts on, Bristol City Football Club. Other than that, I'm pretty much just at my studio in Muswell. You can just find us on Instagram. I don't know where else though. If something comes along, I'll jib off to it. I might try and get up to Newcastle. There's another talk going on up there. So there's different things happening all over the show,
Can you ever imagine putting the machine down and stopping tattooing?
When lockdown first happened, the first lockdown, we had glorious weather, didn't we? And
I couldn't enjoy it. I couldn't enjoy it.
I could, because I'm lucky that I bought this shop, over the years. Because I used to live up here as well, so it was my home as well. So I managed to buy the shop, so I didn't have to worry of rent, which was a godsend for me. And I used to sit in my garden in the mornings, and I got like a little bird bath with a fountain in. I'd see the sort of different birds that come in there. It was glorious skies. There's a big nature reserve across the road. I'd walk around there and I just thought, wow, this is heaven. And I thought, if retirement's like this, it would be great. Then the second lockdown came, and the third one, and it was cold and it was winter, and I just thought, I'd go mental. I'd go mental, so I think that I will still always be around tattooing until I die, probably, because I don't aspire to have anything that I haven't got. I like to just go exploring around places, you know. And it always seems to, if I'm walking past a tattoo shop, I pop in there and have a chat with people. So in some form, I'll still be around it, you know, whether it's trying to write a book on it or doing a few little bits here. I mean, I've cut it down a bit to, I mean, when I first started, we were 7 days a week working all hours God sends you. And that's what I was saying to people, you know, you've got to take some time off for yourself. But I still really enjoy being around it. And I love seeing what people are creating, you know. I mean, Samantha Fung, you know, she's one of my favourite artists I've seen at the moment. And every time you open Instagram, there's a new person coming along, just turning out amazing stuff. It's just so there's still a great buzz there to see what's happening. And then of course there's a few little trigger things that get you annoyed in tattooing. What's happening there? But yeah,
I find that, and like if I'm having a moment where I'm starting to feel like I'm getting a bit stagnant, or I'm like, you know what I mean, starting to like, you know, you go through these periods of time when you kind of, or at least I know I do, but, you know, and I kind of think, oh, you know, like I'm starting to feel like I'm not producing the work that I want to, and then you see some material and it like reinvigorates you, and then you get, and it's just like a constant cycle. I mean, you can't ever get to a point where you've completed it. So like, yeah, that constant evolution is.
And sometimes it's good to go back and revisit techniques or things that you stop using. I mean, sometimes people think, what do you mean go back to that? But trust me, sometimes there's things that you do and then you stop doing it, or you try something else, and then you can go back to the other bit and combine it in with what you're doing. I mean, you know, I just work in a weird way, how I work. You know, I never really know I'm going to approach something. And I was saying this to Irene, who's my apprentice, or well, she's almost like ready to go full on now. I said to her, if I'm doing a panther or a bulldog or that, I don't do it the same every time. I might look at it and think, right, this panther's going to have blue put into it, or this panther, I'm going to do it this way or that. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, I think that sometimes you can get bored with it. I mean, in the 90s, everyone was getting Tasmanian devils done. And I can remember these people started to make stickers with a Taz with a red circle around him and a red line through him, stick them in the windows of their shops because they just didn't want to do it anymore. And funny enough, I mean, when I first started it, when I was doing all traditional stuff, I just got to the point, said it in an interview back then, and I found it a little while ago in a mag. I said, I never want to do traditional work again, because at that time, all the new stuff was coming along, you know, or black and grey had just started, you know.
And you want to be kind of doing that and fresh stuff.
So I've gone through all that, and now I've rediscovered traditional work, and it's not the same as I used to do it, you know. I can take the same image from then, and that's what I mean. You know, you can just evolve all the time, and you don't have to just follow one path with it, you know.
Yeah, there's so much to it in it, and I'm still so early in on my journey, you know.
Yeah, but that's great, man. You've got the right attitude by the sound of it, you know what I mean? Just don't let it jade you. Don't let the trade jade you, you know what I mean? It's like I said, if it gets a little bit on top, take a bit of time out for yourself, and that, you know, I mean, it sounds a bit hippie-ish, but, you know, I've read a few books in lockdown, and that one called Ichi-Aigo Ichi, based on the Japanese tea ceremony, and some of the stuff I read in there kind of became a little bit like, wow, yeah, I never thought about life like that or doing these things. So that's the great thing. We're only on this planet for you know, we don't know how long. So you just got to enjoy it as much as you can. And certainly for me, tattooing has been one of the most, if not the most enjoyable sort of trade and thing I've ever been involved with.
Yeah, nice. Brilliant. I mean, I just want to end that by saying thank you so much.
No,
really
it's been really good talking, you know. Let's just hope we haven't bored anyone. But
no, not at all. Do you know what I mean? It's been good. And I'd just like to take that opportunity to say thank you for everything that you've contributed to the trade in the industry. Well,
I can only have contributed what I've contributed because I've been inspired by others, you know what I mean? And if in some way I've helped people, I'm really glad about that, because I'm only sort of replicating the help I've had in the trade over the years.
Yeah, nice. Love it. Right. Lal, so as is tradition with season 2, we've got the drawing challenge.
We've got a piece of A5 paper, you've got a BIC, you've got a HB, a 2B, and a 1/2 mil fine liner. Just to make matters worse, I'm going to be giving you some pub quiz questions at the same time. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes to draw ignorant style Harry Styles. 3, 2, 1, go.
Where in the world would you expect to find a car with the vehicle registration code V?
Where?
Yeah.
Uganda.
Okay. In which children's book did a spider called Charlotte and a pig called Wilbur appear?
Animal Farm, George Orwell.
Which Mexican artist produced works
Frida
entitled?
Kahlo.
Yes. How many sides has a heptadecagon got?
Not enough.
What was the name of the character played by John Travolta in the film Pulp Fiction?
No idea.
Which was the first James Bond film to feature Roger Moore in the title role?
Oh, fuck. Dr. No.
All right. Suncrisp, Golden Russet and Brayburn.
Apples.
In which country would you find the coastal resort of Lara Beach?
Portugal.
Got 2 minutes left.
Oh, I've got loads of time.
In which century was the first Grand National horse race?
In the 19th century.
The letters of the word allergy can be rearranged to form 3 other 7-letter words.
Gallery.
Yeah.
I can't be bothered to think of the other one.
I'll give you them. Largely and regally. Who played the title character in the BBC series Jonathan Creek?
No idea.
Who succeeded Henry II as King of England?
Richard I.
John Gosden and Mark Johnston are prominent names in which sport?
No idea.
Oh, well, I don't know that one. The logo for which popular app consists of a white telephone in a white speech bubble on a green background?
What the fuck? I have no idea.
All right. What was Margaret Thatcher's middle name?
Hilda.
What's the name of the 4th book in Harry Potter series?
Mate, Harry Potter's a rotter, I don't know.
1 minute left. What's 15% of 2,000?
Don't ask me maths.
Yeah, no, I'm not good with maths either. Which film actor has commonly been nicknamed the Muscles from Brussels?
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
How many episodes of the UK version of The Office were made?
I never watched it, no. 10.
Bright Eyes by Art Garfunkel was used to soundtrack in the soundtrack to
Watership Down.
Yes. Which UK airport has the code GLA?
GLA.
GLA.
Glasgow.
Yeah. In which country was the renowned cricketer Brian Lara born?
I think he was born in the West Indies, Barbados.
Trinidad and Tobago. It's close. Which metal has the chemical symbol PB?
PB. No idea.
No. Lead. 2 seconds. I'll give you this one. We're finished, but I'll give you it. Cancel. According to the idiom, what do birds of a feather do?
Flock together.
There you go. How did it come out?
It's Cockney rhyming slang. Harry Piles Styles. Harry Styles Piles. Piles Styles. Who knows? Fucking
Hey, it's good. Love that. Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the episode this week. Don't forget to head over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to leave us a rating and a review as well on Spotify or podcasts, wherever you listen to them. Really helps the podcast grow. Massive thank you for all the support so far, all of the comments, and to our sponsor, Ghost Cartridges for Season 2. I'm Alex Lloyd, and this is a 21st Century Tattoo.
So I started in the trade. I like to try everything out, you know. Avon calling.
There it is.